Welcome to Otaku Talk. It's me, your boy, your host, OD, and today we'll be reviewing and analyzing chapter 1065 of One Piece. This was a doozy of a chapter. Honestly, there was just so much in this chapter. I feel like so much of it is just going to get overlooked. There was so much of this chapter that I have 2 pages worth of notes that I typed out. I haven't typed up a script in forever because as you guys know, I like to, freeball it, just, spit all from the dome, all that stuff. But I just really did not want to miss a lot of key things that happened in the chapter. So if this is your first time on this channel or you've been here before but haven't done so already, I would greatly appreciate it if you could do your boy a solid. Please like, share, subscribe. It would mean the absolute world to me. Anyway, without much further ado, let's get into this review. So, chapter 1065, The Six Heads of Vegapunk. This chapter was phenomenal. Not like I've been saying this for a while. I am loving this mini arc. It has really been on the up and up. One Piece, in my opinion, is never bad, but there are times where it lulls, and there were some lulls in Wano. But now we just seem like we are ramping up. I'm loving the pacing. No, it doesn't like we are speeding up the story too much, but it does feel like we are getting to our end goal at an expedited, pace, and I'm all for it. The film red poster looks amazing. Oda definitely put a lot of time and effort in. I could feel the emotion, just the passion coming from the pages. So, honestly, I'm not really a movie watcher. I don't usually do anime movies. I'm weird about, a continuity and canon, blah blah blah. But honestly, screw it. Film Red has been hyped up and promoted to hell too much. I think I'm just gonna bite the bullet, and fucking just go see it. I think that I've heard that there is canon elements to this. Screw it, I'm gonna check it out. Anyway, Zoro and Brooke have decided to stay behind and watch the ship, or at least that's what I thought last chapter. However, Zoro, being smarter than I, realized, actually was thinking, hey, I just thought it was a better idea to stay here just in case something happens to them. Who's going to rescue them if something happens. So it's better for us to stay here on this ship and chill, and then something happens, we'll be ready and available to go and free them. So honestly, I thought that's genius. They're a Yonko crew. It's time for them to start acting like one, start thinking like Zoro is the right hand man. So second in command. So I really liked the idea of him really stepping up and filling that role with that idea. And I also love the fact that Brooke had the similar idea. They just have this kind of idea to protect the crew, and obviously Sanji's with them to be protector of the people on the island while they're on the island, right? One thing that's given me a little bit of like a flag is the Vegapunk, the Vega Force one that's there, the one that's like the side, like way bigger than the Sunny and can like pick up the Sunny itself. It's a little ominous that it's just kind of sitting there. So maybe that might come into play later on in the chapter, but I'm not the chapter, the arc, but we'll see. While they're there, Caribou is complaining to Zoro because apparently they made a deal with the Straw Hats that hey, once we get to the next island, we're gonna let you off here. However, this is a government island. He's like, yo, don't let me off here. Let me off somewhere else. Had no clue this is where you guys intended to place me. So that was honestly freaking hilarious. Zoro kind of just, dismisses him and is like, fuck off. But like in a friendly way. At first he's like, I heard you helped our captain. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. And like at first I was like, well, he did with the food, right? But no, I think it's very aware of all the things Caribou has done since Fishman Island till now. So yeah, Caribou wasn't too happy about that. And he's like, I'll get you back. Which honestly, as like kind of a soft, threat as that seems, the information Caribou does have is, the and we still don't know who we were trying to give or sell that information to. So maybe this will come around to bite us in the ass. So anyway, Usopp, Nami, Sanji, and and Frankie, the ones with Lilith, are, following her through, Dr. Vegapunk's laboratory, right? And, they're seeing some really cool advanced technology. They're on an escalator and they're freaking out and they're just wondering, how does everything work, right? And so Lilith goes on to explain, which I think maybe she gave a good explanation. Earlier when I read, I was kind of sus, and I feel like seems like she's beating around the bush with the answers, but she basically says you could say everything is run on fire, right? And I was just like, what do you mean by that? I really do think that like there is like a specific reason why she says it like that and kind of keep vague and stuff like that, and that is going to play a big part later on in the arc as well. Oda goes on to explain that fire can be converted into any type of energy. So that was really, really interesting to hear. I can't wait to like what Oda is actually getting at because I'm sure that there's actually dropping hints that something is happening here. We also find out that she's constantly always looking for alternative fuel source, which once again could be completely mundane and innocent, or she could have like I don't know, army of Aryan slaves that she siphons the kind of makes me wonder what would happen if like world government or had the mayor. Also, kind of wondering why like people like Kizaru can't be used power sources with their light energy stuff like that, right? Also makes me wonder because of this part coming up. She says she wishes that she had an eternal flame. If she had one of those, she could create her own sun. And I was like, yo, that's crazy. And it also makes me feel like Oda doesn't really mention without a purpose. So now I'm thinking, is there an eternal flame? Wouldn't the eternal flame be something akin to like the Mera Nomi? Is there a evolved version of the Mera Nomi that's like the sun fruit or something like that? That's an even stronger version of the fire fruit, or is it like a Luffy type situation where the Mera Nomi actually the sun fruit and you the flames of the sun? So like, there's a lot of things like just spiraling in my mind right. By the way, if you keep seeing me look down, it's because I'm looking at my notes, and I'm sorry. I know I just don't want to miss a thing I wrote down. So anyway, Lilith walks through this giant this giant gate, but the gate looks more like a space airlock, like sci-fi science fiction movies on like spaceships and stuff. And so at first the strides are all like super confused, like, hey, like where'd you go? Like, listen, and she's like, don't let your eyes deceive, walk through. And they do walk through. And initially I'm like, is this another hologram kind of situation? However, once they're on the other side of it, they're like banging on it and it's, solid metal again. And so that was super interesting. But it's hilarious because this was all a massive trap. Once they're on the other side of this gate, they hear the voice of another satellite, Edison, telling them to just keep walking through, right? So as they're walking through, they stumble on Seraphim Jinbei. Usopp thinks that, hey, like, is this like Jinbei's son? Um, Nami's like, hey, I think this is more of like a like someone took Jinbei and shrunk him, and I not shrunk him, but like de-aged him. And I just love the fact that like because of everything they've been through, because of everything they've seen, these are like or explanations that they're jumping to, and they're somewhat accurate, not accurate, but they're very plausible because we've seen the ability for like all these things to happen, like secret children, devil fruits that de-age you. But Sanji, in my opinion, has the most accurate answer. Technically, it's Frankie, but Frankie's like, duh, because of what happens next. But Sanji's like, it's. I think it's just a coincidence. I don't think that thing has any like kind of like relationship. Jinbei, it has it's younger than Jinbei. It has black wings, and it's giving off like this ominous feeling, which I could only assume is like a Seraph version of like killing intent, right? Or maybe he just felt like something was off. I don't know, but I just like the fact that the person with the highest spec observation hockey makes the most logical like observation of the situation there, right? And so Seraphim Jinbei stands up and launches a beam at the crew. They immediately figure out, okay, yeah, this definitely isn't Jinbei. This is a pacifista. And honestly, something I noticed on I didn't notice this at first. Were two main things that I noticed that I thought were like were interesting. One, the tank that Seraph Jinbei is sitting in front of has a 98% on it. And so that whole time I'm thinking to myself, hmm, what could that 98% be? Part of me, my first thought was 98% complete. Maybe this like clone, the seraph, whatever these are, maybe it's not 100% perfected. Maybe it's not 100% optimal. Maybe, it just it's lacking that 2% that'll make it the ultimate weapon. That maybe it's still like a failure to Vegapunk, right? The other theory I had was maybe they have to be charged. We were literally just talking about energy and like how things need sufficient fuel and energy and stuff like that. So it's like, what do these seraphs run off of, right? Because part of me is trying to figure out, how much of them is biological, how much of them is mechanical, and if they are mechanical, what do they run off? Because Frankie runs off cola, right? And I know that's like nonsensical, but like that's at least an explained fuel source. What do these seraphs run off, or if they are clones, are they just flesh and blood kind of thing? So that was super interesting. The other thing I noticed was Seraph Jinbei has this like weird part of his hand that's either completely water or like a tube filled with water. Originally, I thought it was like it was kind of like Sugetsu kind of, but like no, it's like very clean. You almost wouldn't notice it, but then once you notice it, it's something that you can't unnotice. So I thought that was super interesting. Maybe that itself is the like the 2% that's not complete. Um, who knows? I really could not tell you, but the crew immediately pieced together that this entire thing was a trap and try to figure out what's going on with Pacifista Jinbei. Which by the way, shout outs to Lilith, the evil satellite, because she played this off so damn well. She really backstabbed and like betrayed them like just so smooth with the betrayal. They're just like following her, asking her questions. Frankie's fanboying. She was like, "Yeah, talk, talk, talk. Yeah, this, that, the other," and then trap. and like, and like, what's that like? Caught up to me. I was like, that's actually hilarious as hell. Um, but yeah, anyway, Jinbei suddenly leaps into the ground as if he has the Sui no Mi or the Sui no Mi. I'm probably butchering that, but it's the swim fruit that, or Pink had. I was thinking that this is either like um swim fruit or like kind of like the Pika fruit where he could like go into like control forms, but like no, it's definitely the swim fruit. I was just confused because like normally Senior Pig is like on top of the water, but I Jinbei was like underneath. So I thought that was super cool because basically he has the swim fruit, but he is way better at it than Senior Pink simply because is biologically a fish man. So he is going to be able to like utilize this fruit way more efficiently and optimally than like Senior Pink ever could, right? And this honestly opens the doors for so many things. It makes me wonder if we're gonna start re-seeing, either copy devil fruits or older devil fruits, but in the hands of way more competent, capable users or people that are just biologically more inclined to certain fruits. Because you have to think about it like this: the swimsuit fruit just allows you to swim through like solid surfaces, right? It doesn't make you Michael Phelps. It doesn't make you a better swimmer, right? But now that Seraph Jinbei has these abilities, he's able to utilize them to the maximum. There's also something else that he does in this chapter that I'm about to talk about really soon that I think just adds on to this whole idea of wow, like devil fruits aren't just powerful, but who wields them and how they're utilized are, a big part of that too. Also, that gate that I thought was maybe a hologram, but then turned solid, part of me thinks maybe it's another application of that. Maybe it's a door, a gate that ate the swim through either replica or what have you. I really hope Senior is still alive because Frankie did promise that they would meet up again, right? But yeah, anyway, pops up out of the ground. Frankie immediately recognizes this ability because of his fight and relationship with Senior Pink. And Jinbei immediately comes out and grabs Nami by the throat. Sanji is not playing that shit. He immediately springs into action and kicks the ever loving shit out of Seraph Jinbei in the face with I can only assume an Ifrit Janbei, right? I think he kind of understands from the short interaction so far that this Seraph isn't anything to play with. It's powerful, and he needs to go all out. Also, obviously, this thing played a hand on Jim, right? And so, I do kind of like how both Sanji and Robin are like that was uncalled for. You don't put your hands on Nami. Like you've just signed your death sentence, right? Your death warrant. And I thought that was awesome. I thought that it shows that it doesn't matter if it's another crew member. If you put your hands on another crew member, the rest of the crew members will take action, right? Um, and I honestly think it's even more so when that crew member that's been hurt is someone that's like usually a non-combatant. Yes, all the Straw Hats are combatants, but there are some that are way more better, like way more inclined to fight and way better fighters, and then they're the ones that just kind of fight to help out, and that's Nami. Not gonna lie though, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Not in like I didn't like it. It's just it makes me sad because this is Jinbei's first adventure with the Straw Hat crew. This is his first time from like beginning to eventually the end being an official member of the Straw Hat crew, joining the crew, being with them, and the first thing that happens on their first like journey as like crew members is a clone of him attacks the crew, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way that they said I don't care if you're Jinbei, like you've signed your death warrant, as opposed to something along the line that shows more trust, or something along the lines of like, Jinbei would never, or that can't be Jinbei, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. So maybe I'm just looking too deep into it, but like that makes me so sad for Jinbei. Anyway, Robin follows up with this Gigante Floor Sea Dragon and uses this move called Snapdragon Spank. But he immediately, once again, dips under the ground and jumps under the ground, dips underwater. I'm gonna call like I'm gonna call it the ground. Like we understand, or I might switch it back and forth and say it's water or the ground. And you'll see why. But once he comes up, he demonstrates something that we never ever saw from Senior Pink before. And he comes up and he has like water, like liquid or or some kind of fluid or liquidized solid in his hand. Because once again, because of the ability of his devil fruit, able to swim in solids like they are liquid. And because of his, fishman physiology and genetics, he's able to use fishman karate. And I thought this was incredibly insane because essentially, once again, the ramifications of this are tremendous. He is able to use fishman karate with the ground as if it were water. One of the biggest weaknesses, or it's less of a weakness because above water fishmen are still stronger than human, but underwater it's completely like unparalleled, right? So now like he has the biggest strength of a fishman at all times, as well as he's able to utilize the matter, the solid around him as weapon, because once when Jimmy's in the water he's able to use all the like fishman jiu-jitsu, judo, and like other stuff, and throw like launch these massive attacks. He can do fishman karate above the surface too, but he's only limited to like the vestigial like water vapors and stuff in the air. But no, he actually has massive substances for stuff. So honestly, this is crazy because he has just a massive supply of liquid all the time in the form of like matter. I'm also curious if the seraphim suffered the same weakness or disadvantage to being in actual water and stuff like that. I doubt that Vegapunk is able to get rid of all like that particular weakness. That seems like something that's just going to be like in ground. But honestly, that was tremendous. Now, before Jimmy can attack Robin, Usopp covers for her and uses lethal green star skull exploding grass. Which, to be honest, despite it missing because Jinbei, dove into the ground again, I wasn't a fan of. I was kind of hoping to see, some kind of evolution from some kind of quick thinking, kind of like Batman esque, where we're thinking about, the abilities of our opponents, especially when they're stronger than us. And I was kind of hoping he would take out some kind of star that has some kind of drying agent. You know what I mean? Basically, he would shoot it and it would dry out Fishman Jinbei because he realized this is a Fishman. When they're dried out, they might be weak or something like that. I don't know if that would work or not, but I thought it would be like a cool thing for Usopp to experiment with, but he didn't. Honestly, I've always thought the pop beans were cool. Ever since they were introduced, I was always felt weird because it's not the like direction, the evolution skill tree that I really wanted Usopp to go through. But I liked and respected, the potential for the versatility of it. I knew that this type of weaponry, like there would be so many like versatile uses and things that could like happen just because plants in the One Piece world are insane. I really honestly preferred when we were doing the dials and stuff. And I was looking forward to seeing like power based off that. But I digress. I think we'll see something really cool up in the future. I just feel like there hasn't been anything that like Usopp has done that's maybe like holy fuck the pop greens are like the shit, except maybe like that one time he used that one pop green that like was a giant. I don't know. It had like the red nose and lightning or whatever. That was super cool. But other than that, I haven't really seen too much from Luffy. Not Luffy. Sorry, Usopp. That's maybe like lose my shit if you. So anyway, enough harping about that. Jinbei yokes up Usopp, and Frankie fires a radical beat at him. Now, it is at this moment where we discover that this entire altercation is being monitored by the satellites. It's being observed and recorded by them. And we found out that essentially, like, oh, by the way, and the new satellites are Edison Flare, I think, 3, and Pythagoras, the satellite of Wisdom, 4, right? And we find out essentially, like, there's no real malice in what's happening right now. This whole thing is just kind of a stress test, a beta test, a limit test for, the Seraph Jinbei, right? And so, like, this is kind of the first time we've seen the Vegapunks be actually impressed with. I thought like Lilith would be honestly in the moment like she saw that like oh this dude's a cyborg, but she never really gave him feedback despite all him being like I studied your work, I studied your research, blah blah blah. But like the moment they see that he has a beam, they're like oh wow like who is this dude, right? And they're both simultaneously excited about the quality of the data that they are receiving because once again you have to realize this is a Yonko crew. The Seraphs were meant to be this like the strongest fighting force or strongest soldiers, weapon, whatever you want to call them, of the Marines. So strong in fact that they don't need these Bukai. And so, what better place to test these weapons than Yonko, the ultimate pirates, the ultimate like scourge of the Marines? So this is the perfect beta test for them where they're going to get like incredible numbers that they couldn't hope to get like against like your average opponent. And the best part is they have a commander level member here in Sanji, and the rest of Straw Hats that are no slouches either, minus Nami and Usopp, right? And so they're like both excited about that, but also there's a little bit of concern because the fact of the matter is they haven't fully finished testing Jinbei. They haven't tested his durability against lasers, and so they're worried that there is a chance here that their Seraph could be destroyed. And as all of the satellites have we've seen before have mentioned, there's an issue with money in terms of being able to carry out their research, build things, and replicate things. They've been short on money, and like when they say they're short on money, nothing like there is no doubt in my mind that they are getting like hundreds of billions of berries for their research. It just seems like they are such genius, want to work on so much and do so much that even that amount is, a paltry sum to them, if you will, if you get what I'm getting at, right? And so, also something interesting that's also mentioned is they say that this Seraph is still a kid, which I was super, super, super hype about because for me, that answers a question that I proposed the moment we first saw the Seraphs, which is do they just stay in this form or do they have the capacity for growth in terms of physical growth, looking more mature, but also getting stronger? And now we're getting the answer that yes, they can in fact get older. So one can just kind of assume that they're going to get bigger and stronger and more deadlier, and that's terrifying. And that makes me go back to the whole 98% thing, where it's like, maybe that's like the limits of their cloning, and they can only age them up to 90 of their prime age or like their age now. What have you? You know what I mean? But But yeah, also while I was thinking about that, I just thought it was interesting that there's been a massive focus on the theme of age in this arc. We have Jewelry Bonnie, we have the sheriffs. What else do we? Yeah, we just have a lot of like aging going on, and then it really comes together at the end of this chapter with age, aging and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot being explored with the theme of age in this series right. Also, on top of that, something I found interesting was they were talking about lineage factor, DNA essentially, and how like Jinbei is growing in real time, and they're standing to be like evidence that the ability properties of like and people stay in the lineage factor, right? So I think that's going to be super important. We're going to learn that like all these descendants, they're still parts and pieces of their ancestors, and maybe we're gonna find out from Vegapunk that those, little bits and pieces of lineage factor, you know, those hidden skills from your ancestors, like unlocked and utilized. So there's just so much going on. And the last thing, like about in this section I want to talk about is like apparently he talks about how the green blood concentration. And so part of me is like, is the green blood like what they run on? Is that their force? Does the blood turn green when they're being overly stimulated and like they're coagulating or something like that? I don't know, but like I definitely foresee like the whole like green blood thing being mad important, right? So anyway, moving on further into this chapter. Oh my God, there is so much. Um, as the satellites are being intellectually stimulated by like the fight going on, we see a bit and learn a bit more about how they work. They seem to function where they offload or delegate certain human traits or functions onto one another so that they can like more efficiently work and do what's necessary to get things done. So this is something I kind of put together. I'm actually going to read it straight off the paper so I don't mess this up. But like the way it seems is, like Shaka was logical enough to explain to Lilith not to try a frontal assault on them, right? Lilith was evil enough to destroy Straw Hats. Pythagoras crunches the numbers and processes the data, and Edison comes up with ideas, while York consumes food, either to provide, and like this part's really interesting because I can't tell if this is like literally actually happening or it's like a psychological thing fulfilling, certain like what's the word I'm looking for? Like just things in the brain. So like you have York who consumes food, and it's either to provide energy for the collective brain power that's being utilized by all the satellites in that moment, or maybe it's just to satiate that gluttonous pleasure. What's that word I'm looking for? Yeah, indulgent side of humans and stuff. So maybe it satiates that part, right? Um, and then we also find out, she also takes care of the excretory function. So like the pleasure from the eating, the digestion, and the excretory like functions of the satellites are apparently all carried out through York because there's a moment where we Pythagoras and like I really have to use the bathroom, but I don't have the time. I got to keep working. Then we see York leave the bathroom super skinny. She was like literally like super obese and like 600 BMI when she went in, and then she comes out super skinny, and like all of the satellites seem like super relieved as soon as she's like done, and so like that was kind of incredible to me to see that like she shares that functionality with them. So only one of them needs to like shit, and it just seems like her job is to just like to just eat well, then drop a load, and then give into the itis because then she's so yeah she eats, poops, and then takes a nap, and that's literally her role. So that was honestly hilarious. And it also appears that Atlas is the satellite that gets their exercise and is the personality of the brain that we use to let off steam. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was all a scheme by Shaka in order to utilize Straw Hats for their experiment, but also I don't truly think he has any malice or ill will towards them. You know what I mean? I think this is just something logically decided just benefits him his satellites and the Straw Hats all at once. Anyway, speaking of Shaka, we meet up with Logic Satellite, the lead body. I'm gonna call him the lead body instead of the main body. Part of me isn't sure if like he's like actually like the main Vegapunk or if he's just the leader of the satellites because part of me still has this image of this really old Vegapunk just like attached to like various two a la like Nagato style. And he's just like in a room just doing his best to like live, right? Um, Honestly, we've seen really old people in One Piece before, especially like Dr. Kureha and stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't as down bad as I would think. Anyway, he looks super dripped out in a Daft Punk helmet, cyber streetwear, long coat, and dom boots. Um, and like, yeah, man, he just looks amazing. And like I said, wouldn't be surprised if he planned all this. But he immediately shows up and shows that like he's that dude and he's not someone to be trifled with because he immediately commands the Seraph to go away, which it responds to. And so he has complete over the Seraph. And on top of that, none of the Straw Hats can move because they're all wearing the Dawn boots. If you remember earlier, they talk about how lightweight they feel. So we find out that the reason that they feel so lightweight is because the Dawn belts, control magnetism. I guess they're metal possibly. And the entire time they've been like on a setting that, repels the magnetic force, which I guess you could say like lightens the crew. But now, Shaka has reversed that and increased the attraction. So like now they're stuck to the ground and can't move. Now I'm sure people like Sanji, push came to shove, could like get out of this force way out, but it was just a really cool display of power and just something I didn't expect to happen. Anyway, the chapter ends with Shaka revealing that Egghead is actually an island in the past. While he's revealing this, Luffy stumbles. Oh, actually, before I go into that, there was this gag that cracked me up. When Shaka shows up and introduces himself as Vegapunk, also, like, Usopp has had it with this. He's like, yo, we've already met like two other people calling themselves Vegapunk. So like, are we just bullshitting now? Because I'm kind of a bullshitter. I'm kind of a bullshitter myself. You know what I mean? So yeah. In case y'all didn't know, I'm Dr. Vegapunk myself. And I was like, yo, shut up, Usopp. Shut up, Usopp, you petty motherfucker. But honestly, that was hilarious because Usopp's like, yeah, I'm not about to be outlined here. Okay, something strange going on. So let me get in on this gag. So that was hilarious. But yeah, Shaka tells everyone that this is an ancient civilization. At that same time, Luffy, Jinbei, and like the people he's with stumble upon this giant ancient robot. I kind of had to like started geeking when Luffy was like, "This has to be old because there's rust on it." Completely like oblivious to the fact that you can make a hologram of like a rusted robot. Like that's not why. Like you're right, but you're wrong, Luffy. So that was like hilarious to me. But yeah, um, that just opens up the doors so much because we always kind of thought or had an inclination that One Piece was a post-apocalyptic world, right? But now we're learning, and Oda kind of put like it's the devil in the details. With Vegapunk's name, it was a clue. It's not just a post-apocalyptic world, but it's a post-cyberpunk world, if you will, and a post like super advanced futuristic world. And honestly, it makes so much sense with like how eclectic the technology is all around the world of One Piece. And I can't wait to just see how much more we learn from this arc. We're gonna get so much information, and I'm just super hyped for it. But this did bring up. Oh, but yeah, the civilization was from 900 years ago. That's 100 years ago, before the 100 years before the Void Century. So just we're just gonna be getting a lot of information, and I'm ready for it. One question I do have though is how much of Vegapunk's inventions are his own, and how much are reverse engineering? You know what I mean? I also wonder if there are things that are like beyond Vegapunk's comprehension, similar to how when Frankie was on Baltimore and couldn't understand everything, all of like Vegapunk's research and data. If it's a similar situation for Vegapunk where he can't understand all of like everything that he's seeing on Eggman Island, right? He's just his best to like trying to figure it all out. Um, Also, another question I have is we find out earlier, Jory Bonnie says that she visited Egghead Islands like 10 years ago. It was nothing like this. There wasn't like all this futuristic stuff on there. So my question is if it was like, if this is a, oh, all the stuff on this island is from the past and what have you, where has it been? Has he been excavating it? Has he been digging up? Like, where did it all come from? So there's just a lot of questions I have. Oda, you have dropped a fucking phenomenal fire chapter. I'm just so happy, so excited to be a part of it, to find out what's happening. We are really at the peak of One Piece right now, and the sky is, not wait to see how everything ties into one another. Anyway, this has been Otaku Talk. I'm your host, OD. Have a great weekend. Take care. Also, like, share, take care.